Once upon a time, in a village, there lived a humble shopkeeper. He ran a small but thriving tea stall on a busy street corner. Despite the chaos and challenges of life, shopkeeper was known for his cheerful nature and warm smile. His shop wasn't just a place for tea, it was a sanctuary where people came to share their troubles and find comfort in his kindness. One day, a young man who is the corporate worker, overwhelmed by stress and the weight of his responsibilities, young man noticed shopkeeper's ever-present joy. "How is it," young man asked, "that you're always so happy? Don't you ever have bad days?" Shopkeeper poured a steaming cup of chai, handed it to young man, and smiled. "Ah, my friend, life is a mix of sweet and bitter, just like this tea. I've learned that happiness isn't about what happens around us, it comes from within." Young man, puzzled, leaned in. "How can you be happy when things don't go your way?" Shopkeeper took a seat beside him and began to share his story. "Years ago, I wasn't as cheerful as you see me now. I was married to a wonderful woman, and we had a young son. Life was simple, and we were happy. But one day, my wife fell seriously ill. Despite our best efforts and all the money I could gather, she passed away. It was the darkest time of my life. I was angry, broken, and felt like the world had taken everything from me." Young man listened, captivated, as shopkeeper continued. "For months, I wallowed in sorrow. But then one day, my son, barely 5 years old, asked me, 'Papa, why don't you smile anymore?' His words hit me hard. I realized that my sadness was affecting him, and I couldn't let that happen. Slowly, I began to see life differently. I understood that while I couldn't control everything, I could control how I responded." "But how did you manage to stay happy?" Young man asked, still skeptical. Shopkeeper chuckled. "It wasn't easy at first. Every morning, I'd wake up and force myself to find one thing to be grateful for. Sometimes it was as simple as the aroma of fresh tea leaves or the smile of a loyal customer. I made it a habit to focus on the good, no matter how small." Young man sipped his tea, nodding. "But what about the really hard days?" Shopkeeper's face grew serious. "On those days, I remind myself that nothing lasts forever, not the pain, not the struggles. I tell myself, this too shall pass. Instead of dwelling on what's wrong, I look for what's right. It might be the fact that I still have my health, my son, or just the chance to see a new sunrise. Happiness isn't about a perfect life, it's about finding beauty in imperfections." Shopkeeper's words struck a chord with young man. He left the tea stall deep in thought, determined to try this newfound perspective. Each day, he began to look for small joys, the laughter of a child, the warmth of his morning coffee, or the kindness of a stranger. Slowly but surely, he felt a change within himself. Word of shopkeeper's wisdom spread among young man's colleagues and neighbors. Inspired, more and more people began to embrace gratitude and positivity in their own lives. They realized that happiness didn't come from wealth or success, but from the way they chose to see the world. And so, the busy corner where shopkeeper's tea stall stood became a beacon of hope and happiness for the entire neighborhood. People learned that, like shopkeeper, they could find joy even in life's challenges by focusing on the good. Happiness is a choice, born from within. And even in the chaos of city life, there's always light to be found for those who seek it. If you see in our life, we often find ourselves caught up in the rush of work, responsibilities, and the endless pursuit of success. We think that happiness is something to be earned, something that comes after achieving a goal or overcoming a challenge. But in the midst of all this striving, we forget that happiness isn't something we have to chase, it's something we can choose, right here, right now. Much like the young man who once felt overwhelmed, many of us carry the weight of stress, doubts, and past sorrows. We may feel that life has dealt us unfair hands or that happiness is just out of reach. But as the shopkeeper so wisely shared, happiness is not found in perfection or in the absence of hardship, it's found in our ability to focus on what's good, even in the darkest of times. Each day offers us a chance to find joy in the small, simple moments, the warmth of a cup of tea, the laughter of a loved one, or the quiet beauty of a sunrise. Life may not always go the way we want, but by shifting our perspective and embracing gratitude, we can begin to find peace and joy in even the most challenging circumstances. So, if you find yourself longing for happiness, remember this: it is within you, always. It doesn't require perfect conditions, nor does it wait for the right moment. Happiness is a choice, a daily decision to see the good and appreciate the present. Like the young man who walked away from the tea stall with a new heart, you too can choose to find light in the chaos, peace in the struggle, and joy in the journey. Because happiness, my friend, is not something that happens to us, it's something we create.